Welcome back. Now, the #1 story of the week, the Technology Modernization Fund won't get a $9 billion boost that was in the original version of the pandemic relief bill. It is not the first time the fund has been targeted for cuts from Congress. Karen Evans and Mark Forman are former E-gov administrators at the Office of Management and Budget. Karen was most recently CIO at the Department of Homeland Security. Welcome, friends. It's good to see both of you. Karen, I start with you. Does this make a difference as to how agencies should plan strategies moving forward for IT modernization and digital transformation?
I think it's a factor that they need to include as they go forward because it was an opportunity. For example, the CBP at DHS actually has a project, a modernization project that's critical to them that's being funded from the TMF. And it was a huge thing for them to put together the business case. And I was fortunate enough to be there when the award happened and when they did their first presentation back to the board. And so it really does help a department or an agency ease some of that burden outside of the regular budget process. So I am a little disappointed it's not included.
Mark, welcome. It's good to see you again. You had a terrific conversation this week with my former colleague, Jason Miller at Federal News Network, talking about where to find money. There's still money there to find if you know where to look. Where do agencies not look that they should to try to find money for modernization and transformation?
Well, thanks, Francis. It's good to be here. Good to be here with Karen as well. The budget is where you look. You know, just to get a feel for the issue that you're hitting on. The TMF requires a monetary payback, and the ROI oftentimes from these programs needs to be seen in terms of improvement in the mission, improvement in customer service. And so in the most recent A11, pre the December one, this would be the July 2020 version of the budgeting document. I think there are three paths that are clearly laid out, and I think the Biden administration will embrace those three paths. One is the traditional path where you make the business case based on closing a performance gap in an agency program. The second is in the evidence-based policymaking arena, and I think we need to see greater collaboration between the CIOs and the people responsible for performance improvement. These are performance improvement officers, or these policy and analysis groups that are now in most of the agencies. And the third area is in the 21st century idea implementation. As agencies are starting to get their feedback from their customers on where the customer experience gaps lie. So those are three big areas. I think A11, and I'm very hopeful the Biden administration will create those paths for the funding request to come into OMB this year.
Karen, the last time you were on the program, you were on with the CFO at DHS at the time, Troy Edgar, and you talked about that exact thing that Mark just described, and that is tightening the collaboration with the CIO of an organization and the performance improvement, the performance measurement people in an organization. What does that look like in an ideal form inside an agency, and where do you think gaps exist today in some organizations to tighten that?
Well, based on the experience that I had at DHS and also at DOE, the chief performance officer and a lot of the data evidence pieces like the agency performance goals and the cross-agency performance goals, that whole process that's being managed is usually managed out of the CFO's office. So that partnership is really critical. And then, of course, you have the program leads like Mark is talking about. But I think the other area of opportunity where this integration really has to happen in the partnership is how the agencies have rolled out the position of the chief data officer. For example, at DHS, the chief data officer is one of the key directorates with the chief information officer. And some of the other departments and agencies, that's not necessarily the case. And so Mark is making a great point about that integration, especially as it relates to program performance, really has to happen so that you can justify the investments in your mission budgets, or for that matter, justifying the investments in infrastructure, right? The whole network modernization, the whole thing that the department has to do, that integration has to happen so that you can make the business case going forward to improve the network operations, because you can see that we're going to be in this hybrid environment for a long time.
Mark, the three of us and all of us individually have talked to each other about the integration of the CXOs. FITAR has driven that. A number of other factors have driven that. But as I hear you and Karen talk about these relationships, I wonder if that CIO-CFO relationship isn't maybe a first among equals, that maybe it's not more important than the other ones, but maybe it is a little more important than the other relationships in the C-suite. Is that a fair observation?
I think it is in one aspect. The controlling money and associating those monies and investments going forward is a pretty important aspect in modernization. You know, 85 to 90% of the IT budget is on operations and maintenance, and you can tweak that at the edges. But when we're talking about modernization, we're talking about making an investment in the future of an agency. And the CIO brings that technology expertise. The CFO brings that budget governance, and under FITARA, they have to work together on that. But the third leg of that stool is the program office that needs the modernization. So I really believe it's a three-party function here.
Mark Forman, Karen Evans, you're both superstars. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting
It's
me.
great
Have
to
a great
see you
weekend.
both.